Broadcasting from New York City to the world, it's the G-Man Interviews.
Welcome. Michael Long is chairman of the New York State Conservative Party. He served his country in the United States Marine Corps and was honorably discharged in 1961. A volunteer for United States Senator Barry Goldwater's 1964 campaign for president, Mr. Long registered as a member of the New York State Conservative Party that same year. In 1968, he was elected as a district leader of the Conservative Party and went on to be elected chairman of the Kings County Conservative Party in 1972 and vice president of the State Conservative Party in 1974. He continued his leadership in the Conservative Party, being elected executive vice chairman in 1985 and ultimately state chairman in 1989. At the 2010 CPAC in Washington, D.C., the American Conservative Union Foundation presented the chairman with the Charlton Heston Courage Under Fire Award, and he has received several other awards for community service. He has appeared on both national and local news programs, including Crossfire, Hardball with Chris Matthews, and Inside City Hall on New York One, to name a few. It's a pleasure to welcome you back, Mr. Chairman.
Pleasure to be on with you, Gary.
When I started writing this episode, I went online to see if I could locate any statements you made regarding presidential candidate Donald Trump or his controversial remarks. I may not have been using the right search engines or tools because I couldn't find anything.
I've been quoted in a couple of places, but I certainly have made it clear that starting with Megyn Kelly, I thought that his comments about her were off base and over the line. I think his comments have consistently been over the line, and I've made statements to the fact that while I give him credit for raising certain issues that he has brought to the forefront, namely immigration, namely now on terrorism, I think he needs a filter on many of the statements that he makes, and I certainly his latest one where he initially he calls it the art of bargaining, but he initially stated that he wanted to ban all Muslims from coming to America, and then he backed away a little bit and set a temporary ban on Muslims coming in. And that's totally, I just don't agree with that position whatsoever. I think he's striking a chord with an awful lot of people. And I think it's not that he's striking the chord. I think why I believe he's striking that chord is I think he presents himself as a very strong leader, and I think that's a positive thing. I think he represents himself as a person who probably is saying a lot of things that are in the back of people's minds. And why he has struck that chord is because of the failure of our sitting president, who has displayed weakness. I think issues that people are concerned about and is not addressing them, whether it be the war on ISIS or terrorism. I believe the president clearly is leading from behind, which has created this vacuum and given Donald Trump the pathway to create the kind of storm that he created.
Does it concern you that some of the people he's striking a chord with are members of the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacist organizations?
Look, that's a... Sure, that would concern me, but I don't believe that's the vast majority. It's such a small element of the people that are supporting him. I think the people that are supporting Trump's statements, I guess you would say, or Trump's leadership, is people that go to work every day, raise their families, trying to pay their bills, and are really concerned. If their mom is in a senior center or at a facility, is she safe because she's a soft target, or what happened out in California? I think people have a legitimate concern that we're not dealing with those terrorists that are pledged to change our society.
As you know, Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus met with Trump and asked him to sign an agreement indicating that he would not run as an independent, and Trump complied. Looking back, do you think Chairman Priebus boxed himself and the GOP into a corner by cutting the deal with Trump?
No, I don't think so. I think it was because of conversations that were loosely stated, and I think Trump loosely stated them, that he may run independently. They brought him in, and I think Trump really realized that he was hurting himself by threatening to run independently, and once he signed that agreement, his poll numbers went up. Look, I don't believe Donald is going to be the GOP nominee. I guess I've been wrong up to now. I thought he would fade before now, but he knows how to self-promote himself, and he knows what's on the back of people's minds. And he has, like I said, he has filled the void that America has created, that void being that we no longer are exceptional. We are no longer the leader of the free world. We are no longer the nation that leads the world, not dictates to the world, but leads the world. And our allies don't trust us anymore, and our enemies don't fear us anymore. So because of those dynamics, that has paved the way for a candidate like Donald Trump to do as well as he's doing.
During your last appearance on this show, you said Hillary Clinton would win the nomination and that the party and voters were, quote-unquote, stuck with her because none of her challengers posed a significant threat. Even though current polls show Ted Cruz with a 10-point lead over Trump in Iowa, do you believe, given his enormous popularity and groundswell of support, that the Republican Party may be stuck with Donald Trump?
No, I don't believe he's stuck with Donald Trump. I said a few minutes ago that I don't believe he'll be the nominee of the party. I believe the first battle is already shown in Iowa as we speak. Cruz is passing him in Iowa. I believe Trump will not win Iowa. I don't believe Trump. I think Trump will fade in New Hampshire. I'm not sure about the Carolinas yet, but I think Trump will fade. I mean, he's going to hold on to a pretty good base because of his ability to be very bold and very, I guess you could say, non-politically correct. Still leading the national polls, and that's because the other candidates haven't put forth their whole agenda, and it's early yet. It's really early yet. I mean, years back, Rudy Giuliani was leading in the polls also, okay? And Rick Santorum won Iowa, and Huckabee won Iowa. And, things change in these elections, and I believe that's going to change, and I believe Trump ultimately will not be the candidate of the Republican Party, and not because as the word goes, the insiders will stop him from getting the nomination. I think the people, when they have to make a choice, when they have to go into a voting booth, when they have to go to a caucus, and they have to make a decision who they want to lead the nation, there's a lot of issues that are important to, I think, conservative Republican voters, and Donald is not enunciating a lot of those issues.
New York Congressman Peter King has been very critical of Mr. Trump's campaign and message, and many conservatives stated that the candidate is severely hurting the image of the Republican Party. However, they were just as quick to note that they intend to support the party's nominee, even if it happens to be the billionaire developer. Again, Ted Cruz has a 10-point advantage over Trump heading into the upcoming debates. Ben Carson held a significant lead over Trump several weeks ago, but has since faltered. If Trump manages to overtake Cruz and goes on to become the nominee, would you do what most conservatives are planning to do? Toe the party line and support Trump? Or would you be willing to go against the rank and file to represent what you consider to be true conservatism?
If Trump wins the Republican nomination, I believe the New York State Conservative Party will support Donald Trump for president against Hillary Clinton, okay? And that's the choice that has to be made. Do we want Hillary Clinton, a third term of Obama? Do we want Hillary Clinton, who failed us in Benghazi and who has turned the Middle East into a horror show? or do we want new leadership? Once again, I do not believe Trump will be that candidate. I don't believe he'll be the Republican Party candidate. But if that was to happen, I will stick with the choices of what the masses of Republican voters, mainly conservative, the Republican voters, the rank and file, are mainly conservative across the country. And I believe my party leaders up and down the state of New York would ultimately support Donald Trump. But once again, I do not believe. I just recently had a meeting this past Saturday of my state leaders, and certainly Trump was not in the forefront of in their minds as a candidate. Many of them don't believe he's going to be the nominee of the Republican Party.
Why should voters in this country, especially those of color, believe that the Republican Party wants to bring more diversity into its ranks if House Speaker Paul Ryan and other prominent leaders in the GOP publicly state they would support Donald Trump if he's the party's nominee?
One statement you left out. I think Paul Ryan and many party leaders, and myself, Mike Long, as the chairman of the Conservative Party, have enunciated the things that they disagree with Donald Trump on.
That's fair. Very fair point, Mr. Chairman.
We don't agree that you can ban Muslims from coming in. We don't agree that John McCain was not a war hero. And we don't agree that Megyn Kelly was wrong in her questions to Donald Trump. So we have a disagreement with Donald Trump. I had disagreements when George Bush was president. Believe it or not too many disagreements. I had some disagreements with Ronald Reagan, not very many at all. He was actually a great president in my eyes.
Former New York governor and your good friend, George Pataki, isn't faring well in his bid for the White House. And I'm astonished that he hasn't been able to catch fire, which is a term you used in a previous episode, in the wake of what many perceive as anti-Muslim comments by Trump and bias attacks that have occurred against members of the Muslim community. It's even harder to understand when you consider the fact that Pataki helped play a major role in trying to quell anti-Muslim sentiment throughout the state during and after the September 11th attacks. I know this for a fact because I covered an interfaith meeting that was hosted by Pataki in Rockaway Beach shortly after the crash of Flight 587 in Bell Harbor. I was associate editor of The Wave of Long Island at the time, and many in and outside of the Rockaway community feared terrorism was involved, which proved not to be the case. If any GOP candidate was in a position to challenge Trump and oppose his controversial remarks about Muslims, it's the former governor. Do you have an explanation as to why he, or his campaign advisors for that matter, has not promoted or talked about this crucial period of his governorship?
Well, I can't speak of why they haven't spoke about that crucial moment in his governorship. And George Pataki, I've been a supporter of his. I helped him get elected to governor back in '94. It was the Conservative Party that provided the margin of victory for him to be elected, to beat Mario Cuomo. But one of the reasons why his candidacy hasn't risen is the governor, look, the rank and file voters of the Republican Party throughout the country tend to be conservative. I would say very conservative, okay? Once you get past the leadership, once you go down to the grassroots level. The governor is more of a moderate. He's probably the most moderate candidate running for president in the Republican circle. I think that's one of the reasons he has not risen to the top. And the other reason is that he's been probably out of it too long, out of office for about 10 years. And that's a problem when you're out of office for that period of time. I think Huckabee is having the same kind of problem because he's been out of the mix in elective office. So I think those are the issues that have caused Pataki not to rise to the top or have his campaign be more efficient and more effective.
My apologies for continuing to press the issue, Mr. Chairman, but again, it's only because he's a frontrunner. If Donald Trump ends up being the nominee, are you willing to go on record and say that it will dramatically change the Republican Party as we know it and the public's perception of the party?
Number one, I don't believe he's going to be the nominee of the party. And number two, I believe the party's institution and foundation is a very strong one. I think the rank and file members are very rock solid. and very strong in their views on conservative issues. I think it would have an effect on the party. I don't think it would change the party. Look, the last Republican, real total conservative Republican president we had was Ronald Reagan. I mean, George Bush wasn't a liberal, but he wasn't a conservative visionary in that respect, okay? Both Bushes were conservative visionaries. So I don't believe he'll be the candidate, and I do not believe that it would diametrically change the image. It may change temporarily the image of the party, but it will change the rock-solid foundation where the party stands on the issues across it. And the evidence of that is just take a look at all the candidates that run for president. This is, while we've had such a large field of candidates, just for the most part, almost every one of the 16 to 18 candidates that were seeking the presidency on the Republican line are, without a doubt, conservative.
And finally, what would you say to conservatives in New York that are deeply concerned about chaos and dissension within the Republican Party?
The party is okay. I had a meeting this week, and I'm very happy to say that of all my leaders from around the state, there was 30 leaders from upstate to out to Long Island. There was only one person that was for Donald Trump. And most of our leaders are very thoughtful, conservative-minded individuals, and they don't disagree with everything that he says. They just don't agree with everything he does say. But they also feel that that is not the leadership they want to see for the country. And I have no problem with Donald Trump. I mean, I like him. I've met him. I've talked to him. I think he's done a great service for this campaign. Trouble is, I think all we do is talk about Trump instead of talking about all the issues.
It's been an honor having you on this show, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I greatly appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gary.
And I thank you for joining me once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the G-Man. And until next time, stay cool, stay safe, and stay informed.